Beautiful beans, stunning, easy to grow and proudly prodigious. What a winner! Let's discover all you need to pick perfect pods every time, because here comes our Bean Growing Masterclass. Recognise these guys? Well, this is pretty much all you'll find in the supermarket for much of the year. But like so many other crops, grow them yourself and you'll have so much more to choose from. And of course, beans are incredibly easy to preserve, whether by freezing or canning or dehydrating, so you can enjoy beans throughout the year. What we have here are our standard green beans, also known as string beans, snap beans, French fillet or fine beans, you name it. Now they're generally harvested quite young before the beans inside have swollen, and they've got that pleasing snap to them as well. They are tolerant of hot weather, so these are great for warmer climates. Then there are the flat or Romano beans, which include runner beans. Now these guys are great for slicing up as a steaming hot accompaniment to just about any meal. They generally yield more than your average green beans because the pods are that much bigger and therefore heavier. And they are a great choice for places with slightly cooler summers, but they can struggle when it gets really hot. Along with sensationally speckled borlotti beans or French horticultural beans, these guys can be harvested young to enjoy whole with their pods and all, left so the beans swell for shelling, or left to dry out to enjoy over the winter months. There are yellow wax beans, stunning purple beans born on purple tinged vines, and a whole host of splodged, splattered or speckled pods that really jazz things up in the garden. Now I sometimes wonder if there's just too much choice. If you're struggling with that, then try narrowing it down to these All-America selections and RHS Award of Garden Merit winners. These are all tender, stringless beans that really are the creme de la creme of all beans. I am a massive fan of climbing or pole beans. Not only do they add valuable vertical interest and therefore drama to the garden, the bees absolutely love them too, especially my absolute favourite runner beans. The real selling point for climbing beans is how prolific they are for the space that they occupy. Because these guys grow up rather than out, well, they pack a lot in, whether that's growing up a teepee structure, a vegetable bean arch like this one here, or as a magnificent wall of beans. And they keep on flowering and producing those pods all summer long, so long as you keep picking them. Bush or dwarf beans, on the other hand, grow really quickly, so they're ideal for people with a shorter growing season. Now these tend to produce most of their pods all in one go, and that's really great if you want to, say, process your beans all at once. But if you're after a more steady production, then you'll need to resow them every now and then to keep the pods coming. The biggest appeal about them, as far as I see it, is that they don't need any support. You just sow them, water them, and then pretty much leave them for 2 months, and then they'll start producing with little extra input from you. Today I'm going to be planting up my bean arches, starting with this arch here using these young runner bean plants I started from seed a couple of weeks ago. Now these guys very first popped up on Thursday. Today's Monday, so that's 4 days worth of growth. Just wow, it's as if they can't wait to get started and growing up. So the first job is to just enrich the soil with some organic matter. I've got this lovely, well-rotted manure here. You could also use garden compost, for example. Another option is to dig what's called a compost trench or pit. You just dig a trench where the beans are going to go to a depth of around 1 foot, then add compostable materials such as kitchen scraps into the bottom before covering it over. Now do this in the autumn or winter, and then by spring, when you come to plant your beans, you'll have a lovely cushion of richness there for the roots to grow down into. Beans also like it nice and sunny. I would say a minimum of 6 hours of direct sunshine is ideal. though if you are in a really hot climate, a little bit of dappled shade would do no harm. Now I'm quite up close against my father or broad beans here, but I'm not too worried about that. The climbing beans will quickly grow up and out into the sunshine, and they can grow into this space here. So they'll soon be out and away from these fava or broad beans. Now I'm not covering these guys today, but if you would like to know more about how to grow them, well, I will link to a video on that down below. So these guys are going to go in about 6 to 8 inches, which is 15 to 20 centimeters apart. So I reckon, looking at it, we'll get 4 in here. So just pop them in like that. And there we go. Now, you've probably seen those kind of videos of beans spiraling back and forth, flipping about as they try to sort of search for those supports. And these guys will certainly do that. But if they get a bit bigger, I can always kind of twist them on and help them onto the trellis here, just to kind of help them find their feet. We all need a bit of a helping hand from time to time. In an ideal world, beans are best sown direct against their supports where they are to grow, because transplanting them can sometimes damage the roots, and they obviously don't like that. However, I wanted to get a nice head start away from the slugs in what has been an incredibly wet spring. So these guys were just sown into plug trays, into an all-purpose potting mix, about 1 inch or 2 centimeters deep, and then grown on in the greenhouse, and then brought out now ready to plant. With the weather really improving, there's talk of temperatures in the high 60s or around 20 Celsius at the end of the week. Well, I've decided to direct sow my French beans or green beans here. And here they are. Just look at these beautiful little seeds. This is what, for me, encapsulates springtime. Handling these gorgeous seeds like this and getting them into the ground. I've enriched the soil again here with plenty of organic matter, and just like my runner beans, these French or green beans are going to go down to a depth of about 1 inch or a couple of centimetres, and the final plants will be 6 inches or 15 centimetres apart. But I'm just going to sow them a little bit closer than that, just in case some get eaten by the slugs or don't germinate. They can always be thinned out. And then, just because I'm extra paranoid, I'm just going to sow a few more into a pot here as kind of backups, just in case. It's a pretty girl. Yes. Oh. Right, Ratty. And now, just to get the beans on our way, our magical beans, let's give them a really good thorough soaking. Now, one other thing you could do, if it isn't warm like it is finally now, is to just cover the sown area with little bottle cloches like this right the way along to create a miniature greenhouse effect until they pop through. One of the great advantages of bush or dwarf beans is their super speedy turnaround, which makes them really great for fitting in here and there as gaps appear. They're a great follow-on crop. If you're following them on from a previous crop, then maybe just fork in some general purpose organic fertiliser before sowing. To sow, I mark out my rows to set them a touch over 1 foot or around 35 centimetres apart. I'll then space the seeds 5 inches or 12 centimetres or so apart along the rows, then follow up and plant them. After a thorough water, it's a matter of days before the seedlings start pushing through. Dwarf beans can also be sown into troughs of potting mix, making them a great choice for patios, balconies, or even a windowsill. Bush or dwarf beans shouldn't need supporting, but if you are in a very exposed location or get those torrential downpours, then, well, you can help them along by just banking up the soil against the base of the stems to offer a little bit of extra support. Just use a hoe to draw up the earth, much like hilling or earthing up potatoes, and that will just stop them from flopping over and the beans dragging in the mud. Climbing beans, on the other hand, do need proper support. Now, I love my climbing bean arches here. They're really decorative and the beans often dangle down, which makes them very easy to pick. However, they are a bit of an investment. An alternative to pre-bought arches is to make your own. So I've made arches using this really strong bar here that I've hammered into the ground, and then I've secured this simple cattle fencing here to the posts using something like zip ties or cable ties. And that has lasted really well, and with the beans growing up it, it creates a beautiful tunnel effect and looks absolutely stunning. A-frame supports are the traditional option, while a TP of canes or say hazel poles offers a more compact solution that's less likely to catch the wind and get damaged. I reckon bean TPs look magnificent too. You could also try growing beans up plastic netting, up individual string supports, or against trellis. Basically anything those searching vines can grab hold of. We've done a full video on bean supports, including how to set up a TP, and I'll link to that in the description below. With your beans planted, it's a matter of a few short weeks before they find their way to the top of those supports. Now, beans are obviously very, very thirsty plants, so do keep them well watered. Give them a really good drenching if it's dry, and check the soil often. If beans do dry out, the leaves can go crispy and get prone to disease, so watering is so important. You can mulch around plants to help lock in moisture, and of course be sure to go in and hand weed, or in between dwarf or bush beans, use the hoe every now and then just to keep the soil moving and not give weeds a chance. Once vining beans reach the top of their supports, I like to cut off the very top of the growth, literally the top several inches or so. Now, what this does is stop them becoming a tangled mass at the top, and it encourages growth further down, more side shoots, and that can only mean one thing: more flowers and more beans. When foliage lower down gets increasingly crowded out or shaded by foliage on the top, leaves may turn yellow. We'll just pick those off and add those to the compost heap. Beans like it warm, but if it gets very hot, say above 90 Fahrenheit or 32 Celsius, plants can start to struggle. Watering often will help, but if you get blisteringly hot summers, you may want to try a split season, making a sowing very early in spring so you get beans before the heat of summer, and then a second sowing of, say, bush or dwarf beans later in the summer to crop into the autumn. Bean flowers are really very attractive. In fact, they are some of the most attractive vegetable flowers of all. Now, lots of flowers means lots and lots of beans, but if you find you're not getting many beans, the likely suspect is a lack of pollinators. So to improve the situation with that, it's worth including many more nectar-rich vegetable garden friendly flowers in your plot. So my favourites are alyssum, marigolds like here, nasturtiums, joined this year by cosmos, a really pretty flower. So let's add a few of these at the base of our beans just to be double sure. Ah! Aphids! Beans are really prone to aphids, black bean aphids. That's the bad news. The good news is that they are rarely a problem, and they are an excellent food source for so many of the good guys, such as beneficial bugs and insect-eating birds. When I see black bean aphids on my beans every summer, I just leave them because I know that ladybirds or ladybugs are waiting in the wings and will soon polish off those sapsuckers. However, if they are more than just a tiny cluster, you can also blast them off with a strong jet of water from the hose pipe, and they'll fall to the ground where they will surely perish. Other pests include whitefly, spider mites and leaf rollers. Again, these guys rarely cause a big problem, but if you do find them getting out of control, you can use a natural pesticide such as neem oil, which has a sort of strong garlic sulfur smell that seems to repel pests. You could also use strong smelling essential oils like, for example, rosemary, and just mix that with water and a few drops of natural soap to help it bind, and then you've got yourself a natural spray. Older plants might get rust towards the end of the season. Just cut off any leaves with that disease and remove it to keep the plants as healthy as possible for as long as possible. Beans are famously prolific, but all that depends on one thing: continuing to pick those very prolific pods. Now, if you think about it, any plant's job is just to reproduce. And if you let the beans grow too mature and too big, the plant will think it's done its job, it's set its seed, and it'll slow down production and die. By keeping picking, you don't let that happen. Now, one of my earliest and happiest memories is picking beans with my granddad. He'd give me a bucket and say, "Go ahead and pick." And I go there scampering around excitedly, picking the pods like I was on some sort of horticultural treasure hunt. It's memories like these that really instilled in me a love of gardening. Harvest beans while they are still quite young and tender, and definitely before the beans start swelling inside. This way you can eat the whole pod, of course. Now, they're very easy to miss, so I take a very methodical approach. I come out and inspect my arches every single day, and I scan from the bottom all the way up like this, making sure that every single surface is covered and I detect every last bean. This way none are missed. Now, you can grow yellow or purple podded varieties of beans, which tend to be a little bit easier to stand out against the foliage and notice and pick. Even if you do nothing more than pick them and immediately throw them onto the compost heap, do that, because it'll keep plants from spluttering to a halt. And what neighbours and friends wouldn't love an armful of beans, the perfect summer gift? Remember that beans are easy to process. I love to freeze them and also can them as well, so I can enjoy lovely steaming hot beans throughout the year. Flat podded beans can be left on the vine so the beans inside actually start to swell, so you then have shelling beans. But don't leave it too long, otherwise the plant will think it's done its job. Then towards the end of the season, you can just let plants go all out and finish producing those beans and drying out on the vine, so you've got whole beans for winter storing. Some varieties are better for storing than others. So if you'd like beans for drying and shelling to enjoy over the winter, maybe pick one of these varieties here. Let them dry out on the vine and then bring them inside, shell them, lay them out onto trays and let them continue drying for another couple of weeks, and then store them in a dark, dry place in airtight containers. I'm so looking forward to enjoying my beans. Now do check out this video next, where I'll show you my recipe for canning beans, such a treat, and let me know in the comments what beans you're growing this season. I'll catch you next time.